Welcome to The Explainer. You know, when most of us picture Parliament, we instantly think of grand halls, loud shouting matches, and those fiery televised debates. But today, we're actually popping the hood. We're going to dive into the hidden machinery of parliamentary democracy, the stuff that happens completely away from the cameras. It really makes you wonder, right? How does a massive government actually get its incredibly complex, detailed work done? Because the reality is, the Parliament floor is just too loud, too busy, and honestly way too time-constrained to scrutinize every single line of a new bill or every penny of a national budget. So the real work, it has to happen somewhere else. To see exactly how this hidden engine hums, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll look inside parliamentary committees. Then, the twin sisters of finance. Third, we'll look at some cracks in the system. After that, the daily interrogation. And finally, we'll decode some insider parliamentary jargon. All right, let's get into it. Okay, starting with Section 1, inside parliamentary committees, the working engines. If the parliament floor is the main stage, think of these committees as the backstage workshops. So, what are they? A parliamentary committee is basically a smaller group of MPs pulled from across different political parties. Since Parliament itself only meets for certain sessions during the year, somebody has to keep the wheels turning, right? So these smaller committees function year-round. They do the absolute heavy lifting. They sit down, often with domain experts and government officials, to really study bills and hash out the budgets for various ministries. And when they're done, they publish a report. Now here's the kicker. While the recommendations aren't technically binding on the government, they carry a tremendous amount of weight and fundamentally shape how legislation gets made. Now, you've got two main flavors of these committees, standing committees and ad hoc committees. Standing committees are permanent. They're a constant, fixed part of the legislative process. Ad hoc committees, on the other hand, are strictly temporary. They're built for one specific purpose, and the second they submit their report, they just cease to exist. A couple of great recent examples would be the committees on the Wakaf Amendment Bill or the One Nation, One Election Bill. Once the job is done, they pack up and dissolve. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the makeup of these department-related standing committees, or DRSCs. There are 24 of them, each overseeing a specific set of ministries, and each one has exactly 31 members, 21 from the Lok Sabha and 10 from the Rajya Sabha. But here is the absolute crucial detail for maintaining independent oversight. A minister cannot be a member of a DRSC. It's a built-in firewall, ensuring that the people reviewing the ministry's work aren't the exact same people running the ministry. Moving on to Section 2, the twin sisters of finance. Here we're shifting from general legislation straight into the highly specialized world of the public purse. Let's look at the financial watchdogs. There's this fantastic quote from the source notes that perfectly captures this setup. The Estimates Committee and the Public Accounts Committee are twin sisters. It sounds almost dramatic, right? But it hits the nail on the head. It outlines this vital, intertwined partnership between two massive financial oversight bodies. Both are intimately tied to public money, but they look at it from two completely different points in time. Let's put them side by side to see how this sisterhood actually works. The Estimates Committee is entirely forward-looking. They care about how public money is to be used. They're the ones reviewing estimates and suggesting alternative policies to drive efficiency and economy in the administration. The Public Accounts Committee, or the PAC, is backward-looking. They care about how public money was used. They act as the auditor. The PAC scrutinizes reports to make sure there's financial control over the executive branch after the money has already left the building. So the crucial point is the size and makeup of the Estimates Committee. It boasts 30 members, which is huge, but what really stands out is that all 30 of them come exclusively from the Lok Sabha. Because the Lok Sabha holds the primary power over the public purse, the Estimates Committee directly reflects that mandate. It's a pretty big deal. Let's trace exactly how the PAC gets its hands on the information needed to hold the government accountable. It's like a giant paper trail. It all starts with the CAG, the Comptroller and Auditor General. The CAG drafts an audit report of government spending. Step 1, that report goes straight to the President. Step 2, the President lays it before Parliament. And finally, Step 3, Parliament hands it right over to the PAC. Then the PAC dissects it to see if the government actually spent the funds the way they were legally authorized to. It is this brilliant, self-contained loop of financial accountability. All right, moving to Section 3, cracks in the system, where oversight falters. Because, look, no system is perfectly airtight, right? And to really understand this machinery, we have to look impartially at its structural vulnerabilities. Our sources note several explicit loopholes in how these committees actually operate. First, there's sometimes a noted lack of professionalism, with absenteeism at meetings being a very real issue.
Second, while technically all bills should go to a standing committee, they often don't. In fact, sometimes governments might refer a bill to a committee purely just to buy some time. On top of that, because DRSCs oversee multiple ministries, the members are often deeply overburdened. And finally, the ultimate crack in the armor. At the end of the day, their recommendations just aren't legally binding on the government.
Let's pivot a bit for Section 4, the daily interrogation, keeping the government on its toes. We're shifting from the broader, long-term committee reports to the urgent, daily heartbeat of Parliament itself. This is where individual MPs demand direct, immediate accountability. And this brilliantly illustrates just how rigidly structured the parliamentary day actually is. The very first hour of every single sitting day, from 11 a.m. to 12 noon, is strictly designated as question hour. That is prime time for accountability. Immediately following that, from 12 noon to 1 p.m., we have 0 hour. This is actually a unique Indian parliamentary innovation, where members can raise incredibly urgent matters that aren't even on the official agenda. Now, during that famous question hour, MPs deploy a few different types of questions. Starred questions are a big deal because they require an oral answer right there on the floor. And because the minister is answering live, MPs are allowed to ask follow-up or supplementary questions to really grill them. Unstarred questions, on the flip side, only require a written answer, so no live follow-ups allowed. Oh, and briefly, there are also short notice questions for urgent public matters, but those still require at least 10 days of advance notice to be asked. Let's move to our final segment and see how this builds our insider knowledge. Section 5, Decoding Parliamentary Jargon, an Insider's Glossary. Every specialized workplace has its own distinct language, and Parliament is certainly no exception. First up is a pretty striking term, the guillotine. In parliamentary speak, this refers to the adoption of the demand for grants without any discussion whatsoever. Basically, when time runs out, the Speaker lumps all the remaining budget demands together and puts them to an instant vote. It's generally viewed as a pretty negative concept because it vividly demonstrates a complete lack of legislative control over the executive branch. The budget just drops, literally like a guillotine. Next, we have the kangaroo closure. Just picture a kangaroo hopping across a landscape. This is a measure where the presiding officer selects only specific crucial provisions of a bill for discussion and just leaps entirely over the intervening clauses, excluding them from debate. It's an aggressive tool used to speed up the passage of legislation when the clock is ticking. Now here's a term you've absolutely heard on the news during elections: a hung parliament. Straight from our source notes, this simply describes a scenario where the voters have spoken, but no single political party and no pre-poll coalition manages to secure an absolute majority of seats in the Lok Sabha. It almost always kicks off a period of really intense negotiation to try and form a post-poll coalition government. During transitions of power, you'll often hear about a caretaker government or an interim government, but they are very different things. A caretaker government exists during a prime ministerial succession. It literally only handles day-to-day administration and cannot make any major policy decisions. An interim government, however, operates during a historical transition phase, but it is a full-fledged government with the power to make major, sweeping policy decisions. For example, Pandit Nehru's government from August 1947 until the first parliament in 1952, that was an interim government. Finally, let's look at the leader of the opposition. This isn't just an honorary title. It comes with real, tangible power, including full cabinet status. But not just anyone can claim it. To be recognized by the Speaker, this person must lead the largest opposition party in the Lok Sabha. And there's a strict mathematical catch. That specific party must have secured at least 10% of the total seats in the Lok Sabha to even qualify. And that brings us to the end of our Insiders Tour. We've seen the heavy lifting of the committees, the strict financial audits, the daily pressure of question hour, and the very real loopholes that exist within the system. So, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. When you look at this hidden machinery as a whole, do these mechanisms provide true, effective control over the executive branch? Or are the cracks in the system just too wide? Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer today. Keep asking great questions, and I'll see you next time.